Hi there, and welcome to episode 14 of the Like, Click, and Share podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about practical steps to make your marketing inclusive and diverse. So, this is a really important topic, and it comes on the back of LGBTQ plus History Month. There's more things keep getting added to that phrase each time I think we say it. Gemma's
It
with us.
is.
Hi, Gemma.
Hello, Darren. Good morning. Is it good morning, good afternoon again? I feel like I'm not really sure what's going on this week. I don't know. I know we were talking about this before we started. I think we're both having. Well, I think we've had better weeks. Let's just. I think
We've had better weeks.
it.
I've just got over COVID, which that's why we've not had an episode for a little while, just because I've
Yeah.
not been very well, and there's just been so many different things going on in the world as well. Oh gosh, we won't even get into that.
No, because we haven't got time.
No, we haven't got time. We're not going to solve anything with that. But this is a topic that you picked, and it's quite a strong topic, and it is everybody's talking about it, apart from the main headlines of the news. But it is quite a big thing in marketing at the moment. So do you want to tell us a little bit why you thought it was a good topic to talk about?
I think mainly, obviously, because it is LGBTQ plus History Month in the UK. February, it's for the whole of February. I think it is really, really important. When we were talking about the trends for 2022, I think I don't know whether it was during the digital one of the marketing podcast that we do. I think we mentioned that Think with Google had done this report, and it's one of the top trends for 2022 during the pandemic. It was, I think people just in general, I think we talked about this as well, people just in general expect more from businesses. They expect that instant response. Because obviously everybody's been working from home, things have been different. But in this Think with Google article, which obviously we'll share with other bits that we're talking about today in the show notes, they've said that the pandemic has really highlighted the inequalities and the people's expectations and what they want to see from brands, and people want to be represented. They want to see themselves in the adverts, which is totally what you would expect. You know what I mean? It's not something, it's not, I mean, for me personally, I had this conversation with, I think with you and Matt the other day, for something that I'd posted on LinkedIn. I mean, I think the fact that it's 2022 and I think that we still have to talk about things like this, for me, is ridiculous. The fact that people aren't represented and you don't see yourself in an advert. And I know Shaq from Noodle, who obviously we both know really, really well, he gave a speech at an award show recently about inclusion and how important it was, and it was important for innovation. But yeah, this Think with Google article mentioned that brands needed to be more balanced, that people wanted to be seen. It was about diversity, equality, inclusion. Some of the stats that I found, now these are from 2020, but obviously still not that long ago, and obviously during the pandemic, 31% of people thought that the LGBTQ community was represented quite badly in marketing and campaigns, and 4 out of 10 people felt that brands weren't representing the LGBTQ community people in adverts fairly, and that was something that came from Think with Google's research themselves. So it's quite, the figures are, even though it's only a couple of years ago, I think the figures are like, I think they're really low. Do you know what I mean? For me personally, I would expect brands to be doing more. I mean, I think a lot of brands do. But I think a lot of brands still think that it's all right just to change their logo in June, in Pride Month, and that's all they need to do, and they've done their bit sort of thing. Whereas it isn't just about like June and February, it's about all year round.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
I know. I definitely agree, and it's like you say, it's such a shame to hear that. It's just such a shame to hear that research. I think full stop.
Yeah.
I think it's the same. It is true of a lot of initiatives. In fact, I was just saying to somebody the other day, the whole thing about kind of like plastic and green recycling. And I think the whole pandemic has really caused a lot of behaviours to to kind of retreat or sort of go into sort of negative things. And we've always feels like we've gone back quite a few years in terms of our
Yeah,
thoughts and how we speak to people, what we expect. And perhaps, I certainly feel that we've become less patient and more demanding. Whether it'd be interesting to see if that changes now, kind of think of, COVID is easing in some countries and restrictions are coming to an end in some countries, and how long it's going to last for, nobody really knows. But, generally, 2022 is, are things going to go back to how they were? And I don't think really anybody knows the answer to that. But that's what we're talking about today. Is like,
yeah,
actually, if you're listening to this, well, what can I do? Well, actually, there's quite a lot you can do. So, I mean, the first thing I've kind of got on my list is that, in order, if you really want to, if you're interested in becoming more diverse and inclusive, and you want your marketing content to be diverse and inclusive, I think it is like what Gemma was saying, that rather than just thinking, well, I'm going to stick a flag on it, or let's just say we are diverse and inclusive, you've
yeah,
actually just got to go out and just, you need to be diverse. So you need to, if you've got a big team around you, how diverse is that team? Have you got a mix of different backgrounds and gender types? It's not saying, well, we need, one black person, one Asian person, and three white people. That's not what we're saying. But, when it comes to your recruitment, are you treating everybody fairly? Look at those processes about, are there any barriers in the way, about kind of like making things accessible and easy for people to apply, particularly that, if your business is operating in a foreign country, so it's the application process in English and everybody else is speaking in another language. That's one really good example. And I think also some of the questions at interview level, or even if you do application forms now, which I don't know why most people would do an application form, but if you do, then the type of questions, are they just the standard commercial style questions that you would ask at an interview, or are you really, think about changing them to actually get to know the character and the type of person that you are that you inviting to apply for that role? Just because they don't fit into a perfect audience or a perfect score shouldn't make them. You need a good mix of people of different skills and different backgrounds, different insights, because they will be able to help you say, well, actually, why don't we say it this way, or why don't we do that, and add value in different ways. And that's a really positive thing. So, to have different people in your organization, or even just surrounding you in terms of how you do business when you're speaking to people, I think is great. But then those individuals or those teams will also be able to spark off different ideas in terms of your approach, different groups and different segments that you can be reaching out to. So you have a much more richer approach in your marketing than you would do just taking your people through your standard like recruitment process. And that might sound waffly. It kind of, I suppose it is a little bit waffly, but it's difficult to give any more context to that because it is what it is.
yeah,
But you can't say that you're inclusive and diverse if you don't have a diverse mix of people around you. And just to say you've got a token female or even a token male, it doesn't need to be one or the other. But it needs to be that you need to be going out there and trying to encourage as many people from different backgrounds to apply for roles or to engage with you, doing business, even down to client base. Looking at that, I think is really important because, again, listening to your customers and your clients, they will be able to help you like move your business forward and give you loads of ideas, which you would normally be having to probably either pay consultants or do like extensive research. And you're going to get all that for almost for nothing, really, but just making sure you have this much more richer approach to stuff. What do you think of that, Gemma?
I think everything that you've said there is similar to I cannot remember what the award show was that Shaq from Noodle was at, but that was very, very similar to what he was saying. about having more people and how you get better ideas and more innovation. And I think it was me, you and Matt were talking, I think last week after I put I can't remember what the post was. I think I shared a post about tattoos or something on LinkedIn, and me, you and Matt were talking about it. And I was saying that I feel like a lot of companies think that just because they've got a policy for something and it's on their website and they've put it in their handbook and they've given it out to everybody, that's enough and that's all that it needs to be. The other big thing that I think that companies are frightened. I think they're frightened of getting it wrong. And I think that is a lot to do with social media now and how quick people are to jump on, not just companies, but people, just anybody, comments that people make on social media, posts that people put out there. And I think companies are so scared of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. But if you had a diverse team, you wouldn't get it wrong. Do you know what I mean? Because you would have people around you and you would get it right. I think you have to have a team of people. I think you have to be aware. I mean, it's not just about obviously LGBTQ history. It's about diversity inclusion as well. It's about knowing if you work with somebody, being supportive of their culture as well. You know, if you work with somebody who's Muslim, you don't want to invite them out to a party where there's only going to be alcohol available or certain types of food. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be aware of people, and you've got to think about that. You've got to think about that before you have like competitions at work. You've got to think about things. You know, you've got to think about everybody. And I do think a lot of companies think that just, well, I've got a policy for this, I've got this, so that's it. You know, and it isn't. It's so much more than that. But I mean, I agree totally with exactly what you said there. And it is exactly what Shaq said when he stood up and gave his speech, which he was dead nervous about giving, because obviously he didn't want to say the wrong thing. But he said that you're only going to get innovation, you're only going to get creation, you're only going to get business change by having diversity and inclusion and teams where everybody's represented, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to like drive change through business and everything. And it's totally right. And I think that based on obviously what Think with Google have said, and I think it's one of the, like I say, we talked about it being one of the big trends of 2022, and companies getting it right. But I mean, there's loads of help and support out there. Stonewall have got marketing for business PDF. I think Google have got a link on Think with Google for how businesses can market all year. But it's like what we were saying before. It's all year round. It isn't just the like I'm going to change my logo and add the pride flag or use the pride colours in June. It's people want to be seen all year round, because I think people aren't stupid. Do you know what I mean? The people become very aware of the fact that, oh well, actually we see that business doing that, so we know that that's the only time that they support us. The rest of the year we aren't really represented. So I think there's quite a lot of stuff. Obviously, I mean, clearly in the stats that I mentioned before that businesses can do. But I think 2022, based on what people have been saying about what the trends are and what people need to do, this is going to be the year, I think, while we come out of the pandemic and people's expectations of what they want and how they want the instant responses and everything is going to change. I think we will start to see a big shift in things, hopefully.
I mean, here's some kind of like tips. If you listen to this, you know, and think, well, what can I do? So look at your imagery. First of all, I think it's a really simple step. So is that representative of your client base and, you know, the wider world that's out there? So whether and, you know, just to give you an example, if it's just all of like young women, it's like that may be appropriate to your organization if you're in fashion or like beauty. but that might not be appropriate if you're in education, for example. If they're all of the same sort of skin color type, that is that representative? Probably not. And if even if it is, then your organization is never going to be inclusive and diverse. It's never going to accelerate if you don't then change that to start including more of a mix. And we're talking about, in my head, it's talking about kind of professional photography here, stock photography as well, but then start to consider using real photography. I think that makes all the difference, because nobody can really argue that it's your footage, it's your content, and it is
it's your
real.
business team, isn't it? It's
Absolutely.
examples rather than
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some great stock photography websites out there, but it's about using positive images with people as well. It's about having people like female CEOs. It's not having just certain nationalities just only working as like cleaners or in the kitchen. It's about making sure that the images that you share are positive, so you're showing everybody in all roles, in all positions. But I think the best thing to do is, like you said, to use images of your team. But I mean, nobody wants to go on a website. If you're looking for a new job, you don't want to go on a website and see a company where everybody is either just all white middle-aged men, or like, you're going to look and you're going, well, am I going to fit in there? Is it going to be the right role for me? Am I going to get there? Yes, they've got the policy on the website and they say they're diverse and inclusive, but when I get there, am I going to feel like I belong? Am I going to feel like part of it? I think there's so much to consider, and I do think the fear factor is a big thing. I think that's a big thing. It doesn't matter what the subject area is. It doesn't matter what the topic is. I think that's something for, I think, just everybody, just in life in general. And people don't like change. People don't. It's just one of those. It's hard. It's quite a hard topic to like explain and put into words. And again, it's like the fear of saying something wrong or not. Do you know what I mean? Like not explaining in the right kind of way. I think it is really difficult, but I think there are lots of things that businesses can do, like making sure, like what we're saying there about the images on the website being positive, being inclusive, making sure that they're sharing those things on social media, but they're using images that are positive all year round, not just at certain times. That if you're a marketing company, you're not just talking about certain topics, you're talking about diversity and inclusion. I mean, we share a lot of content like that ourselves on our social media channels all year round. It's not just doing it during that one time. I know obviously that those months are months to celebrate, but I think people want to be included all the time, not just
And I think you can give the voice back to your team, let them lead, let them decide about actually, well, if you want your organization to be celebrating a particular month or event, then ask everybody. Don't don't segment your team to say, well, they may be gay or they have a disability, and ask them specifically what we should be doing. Ask everybody, because that's the same with. It's the same thing going back to race. Just because you might say something inadvertently, again, say certain type of person, and you think you might be offending somebody, or somebody might be offended, but actually you could be offending everybody. You didn't have to be just that group being talking about that subject for that group to be offended. It could be like a wider group of people as well. And I think that's often a misconception. So giving the voice to all of your team and then let them kind of decide, and let them kind of create some of the content and video messages. Takes a lot of pressure off your marketing team. You create some amazing types of content that you could never even think about before, but you'll start building some stories as well. And if you don't know this, in terms of storytelling and marketing is such a massive it's a massive tool to like help you convey your your qualities and your values as a business and as a brand, and will definitely outpace anything you could be spending on Google or like ads on any other platform, because that's what resonates with consumers and your audience more through storytelling than ads. So definitely sort of handing the voice back. And another tip that I've got, and kind of the last one I've got on my list here, because we've talked a lot, but if you're not kind of used to knowing what to say and how to say things, just having a list of like appropriate hashtags and even like phrases and keywords, I think is also like a really good idea. And just planning your content, it's just a simple concept, and a lot of people still talk to you just don't plan the content. They still do it ad hoc on a daily, weekly basis. It really isn't the way to go. It really do need to be planning your content and structuring your content across the year. You can see what's doing well, where you could be improving, but also if you don't do it, you're missing out on these types of opportunities where your branding that does need to be heard and does need to be involved in some of these wider campaigns and discussions and issues. There's going to be definitely more of them in 2022, and that's what we're talking about today. So I think definitely planning is a big one, and even if you don't have a marketing resource, then I try to identify either a portion of your time each week to do that. It can only just be even a half an hour or an hour each week is something, or find somebody who can do it for you to get the best out of it for your voice. Have you got anything else on there in terms of practical steps, Gemma, that you think were good to add?
I think the only other thing that I would say, like practical steps wise for business, would be like recognizing like other holidays and other cultures.
That's good, yeah.
As well, you know, things like Ramadan, careful of the content that you share and things, the time that you share things. If you work in other countries and other markets, obviously I know that we do for the training side of things, you know, and if you're in Dubai, their weekend is Friday and Saturday, whereas our weekend is Saturday and Sunday, you know, so it's just making sure that you're aware of like local cultures, that you're not sharing content on days that maybe you shouldn't be, at times maybe you shouldn't be, you know. It's, I think just everybody's got, I mean, you can't know everything, 100%, but if you've got a diverse team and you've got a lot of people around you, then you don't need to know everything, or you don't need to try and know everything, and you don't need to be fearful of making a mistake or getting something wrong, because you can ask. You've got people around you, and I think, I mean, I've got some friends, and I think people would much rather that you asked a question. I've got a friend, Zara, who's Muslim, and I ask her a lot of things, and she said she likes me to ask her questions because she likes to tell people and she likes to inform people, and she likes to explain different bits of our culture, because not everybody does that, you know, and not everybody takes the time to. And I think that as well helps you understand certain things. I think the main thing for me is to just build the team around you that is inclusive and diverse, and making sure that you've got the people around you that can help you create the content that you need, that's going to put your brand at the forefront of being inclusive and diverse.
Brilliant. Well, I just want to thank everybody listening to this podcast. We'd love to hear what you think. Is there anything that we missed out? All our contact details will be in the show notes, and I think it's going to be a wider discussion this year in many ways. So I definitely think it's something we'll come back to revisit. Again, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back soon for another episode of the Like, Click and Share podcast. But if you like this, please tell others, subscribe, share a link, do whatever you can. Help us out, get a few more listeners, and we'll be really grateful. But hopefully you'll tune in next time for episode 15. Bye for now.
See you later. Bye.